essentially, you have financial capitalism turning classical economics inside out, but rolling history back to feudalism. We're moving back to a feudal society. So what is called moving forward to the post-industrial society, moving into a financial society, is really moving backwards into a feudal society of neo-serfdom. Or debt peonage, where the workers, in order to get a job, an education, and housing, you have to buy everything at the company store that controls the prices. You have to go so deeply into debt that you're essentially a debt peon. It's a little different from serfdom. In serfdom, the serfs were tied to the land and they couldn't move. And when a landlord might choose to sell the land, he'd sell the serfs with it. Well, right now, the debt peons can live wherever they want in America. But wherever they decide to move, they're going to have to subject themselves to the same debt peonage, to buy a house on mortgage credit, to pay for an education, to pay for a car loan, to balance their budget by taking out credit card debt, and to live on debt. They have to go so deeply into debt that they lose their economic liberty. They lose their ability to choose. And seemingly scientific statistics show all of this is being progress and actually making money. And post-classical economic statistics define all income and wealth is being earned by contributing to production. This is the revolution against classical economics and hence against Marxism that occurred in the 1890s. The economic theory of John Bates Clark and the Austrians and the other post-classical economists said any way of making money is just as productive as making money in any other way. Making money by rent, making money by lending money to people in foreclosing, making money by creating a monopoly and charging a monopoly price is just as productive as starting a factory. Making money by crime is the most productive at all. But hypocritically, crime is not included in the financial statistics unless it's committed by a billionaire. If a billionaire does it, it's not crime. But if a poor person steals money from a store, he can go to jail. That's crime. But if a rich rentier makes money by exploiting people, that's called creating wealth. And the economic statistics count that as a creation of wealth. For instance, when your home price rises in value, when new buyers of homes have to pay more for a home, the value of the home, if you were to rent to yourself, if you were a home owner, actually your own landlord renting to yourself, that's counted as part of GDP. 8% of GDP is that amount. And when banks and credit card companies raise their penalty rates to 29%, that's, as I mentioned, called financial services. That increase in the interest rate charge is in addition to GDP. When rents go up, people lose their home and large real estate monopolies like Blackstone Company buy up these houses, charge more for rent. That the increased rent is counted as increased GDP. So the financial sector creates an entirely different picture of reality and statistical picture of reality than classical economics did in the 19th century. And they claim that, you see, here it is in numbers, we have it to the decimal point. If it's in numbers, it has to be scientific, and that's why what we're doing is called scientific economics. Well, this is all double talk. I could have done this whole lecture as a comedy show, and it probably would have got a large audience, but you have such absurdity that the book I wrote, J is for Junk Economics, is all about the economic vocabulary. And if you've read George Orwell's 1984, and you know what doublethink is, you realize that all of this is basically, if you can control the vocabulary, you can control how people think about what is happening, and you can make them think that even as they're getting poorer, they're somehow getting richer because their home is rising in price, even as this entails more and more debt service, more and more taxes, and it's making them poorer and poorer, but somehow the statistics tell them they're getting richer, and who are you going to believe? The statistics are your actual experience, and people are more willing to believe the statistics and what people tell them they're feeling than how they actually feel. Well, what happens? You're having a lot of drug abuse here. You're having America going through what China went through with the opium wars in the 19th century, except the opium wars are now being waged by the drug sector against the domestic economy. That's where the money is being made. Opium and pharmaceuticals, the death rate from opium overdose is going way up. Lifespans are shortening here. That's one of the demographic effects of finance capitalism. And if you want to look at where America and much of Europe is going, look at what happened to Greece in the last 5 or 6 years, ever since it had to pay the foreign debt that the IMF loaded it down with. Greece had to suffer austerity, its population shrank, lifespans shrank, and more Greeks emigrated. Same thing happened to Russia after 1991, and it adopted neoliberal economics. The economy shrank, employment shrank, people were impoverished, got sick, and it ended up with President Putin saying that more Russians lost their lives as a result of the neoliberalism sponsored by the United States than lost their lives in World War II. And finance capitalism, therefore, has become the new way of economic warfare. It's a way of destroying other countries economically and demographically, and essentially ending up grabbing their property, just like wars used to be about grabbing the land and natural resources. That's what imperialism was all about. But in 1991, in the 1990s, American and European imperialism worked financially by neoliberalizing the Soviet Union, Russia, and the other Soviet economies. So to summarize what I'm saying, Prices for housing, the cost of education, medical care, they're all inflated on bank credit. And that obliges workers to go deeper and deeper into debt, but it's all counted as an increase in GDP. And even though economies are getting more indebted and getting poorer, the economics textbooks say this is how you increase wealth. Well, it turns out you're only increasing wealth for the 1%, but the economy is really all about the 1%. It's not about the rest of the economy. And so the question is, who are you going to run the economy for? Are you going to run it for the 1%? You're going to run it for the 99%. And I think the best way to contrast industrial capitalism to finance capitalism is to divide the economy into two parts. That is, to divide the private sector into two parts. The production and economy and consumption economy is wrapped in separate from the fire sector. Finance, insurance, and real estate is a parasite on the industrial sector. And the question is, where is the private sector's money going to go? Is it going to go to the parasite, or is it going to go to the industrial host economy? And I explain all this in detail in my book, Killing the Host, because that's what the financial economy does. It kills the industrial host and ends in a crash. And the objective is to create a crash, to take all your money and run, get it somewhere else, and you've emptied out the economy, and then you go into another economy. So it's all about making capital gains and extracting capital. Margaret Thatcher's policy was, in a nutshell, once she got rid of England's public housing, she said, "Oh, I'm sorry you lost your job. I hope you made a killing buying a British telephone stock and selling your house." People were given their community housing, public housing, and they ended up selling it because they needed to sell it to break even. They were able to buy telephone stock, and of course, then the telephone charges went way up, and their cost of living went way up. They privatized the public railroads, and all of a sudden, the railroad service went way down. The price went way up. They privatized the bus company, and a bus driver's family ended up buying the bus company on credit, and the wife became one of the richest women in England by just cutting back the bus lines that went to the smaller towns. Cut back the buses. We don't make enough profit there. Sell off the bus terminals that were conveniently located in the center of London so that everybody could get to the bus terminal to get to the job. Let's put the bus terminal way outside of London. So people have to take an expensive tube transport to get outside to London to get to the faraway bus terminal to go to where they're going. And life became much harder for the Brits, but it made a killing in the stock market for the people who bought the bus companies on credit, and for the bankers who invested in the bus company and who privatized it and made money for the bus company to buy its rivals and create a bus monopoly. I'm going to pick up the theme of this in the next lecture, and the next lecture is going to be the final, the characteristic of finance capitalism is to internationalize itself. If you're going to take the money out of the economies you wreck, you have to find a new economy to exploit. You've emptied out the US economy. Where are you going to put it? Well, they'd like to put the money in China and bind control of China and Vietnam, and like they bought control of much of Japanese auto companies. You want to extend their financial system over the whole world economy. And the whole Cold War, too, that we're seeing today is a Cold War between finance capitalism trying to expand itself into financial imperialism or free trade imperialism and take over other economies and prevent other economies from making wealth by industrial capitalism or industrial socialism, which is what China is doing. So the war between the United States and China is actually a war of economic systems. And you have the United States and its European satellites on the one hand, again, China, Russia, and the BRICS countries, India, Brazil, and Iran, any other countries participating in the Belt and Road Initiative. I should understand that it's a fight between what kind of economic system the world is going to have. And Rosa Luxemburg, a century ago, a Marxist economist in Poland, put it briefly. She said, the fight is between socialism and barbarism. And that's what the Cold War is about. What kind of a world are we going to have? Are we going to have economic warfare that is won by the financial class and by getting the rest of the world into debt and imposing IMF austerity programs, such as are imposed on Greece, on Argentina? And if a country votes socialist, as Chile did, then you overthrow the government, as Hillary Clinton overthrew the government of Honduras and turned it into a coup d'etat when the president wanted to do it. She said, you can't do land reform. Land reform is against America. We want to buy your land. We want to turn it into coffee export land and make export crops. We can't have land reform. We want the money, not your citizens. And if you fight us, we will kill you. She overthrew them, and America overthrew Bolivia, overthrew Ecuador. This is ultimately finance locks in its power, not simply by extracting interest, not simply by impoverishing the country, but by violence. That's how the senatorial class made its money in ancient Rome. It's how every country has ended up in a fight between a class that wants to get rich by grabbing the wealth of the country for itself, by impoverishing the country at large. So finance capitalism is not only a fight against socialism, it's also a fight against industrial capitalism, because industrial capitalism can only succeed, as China's succeeding, by public supply of basic needs and basic services, and finance capitalism wants to monopolize these public services. The reason they're public is because they're natural monopolies, like the post office, which there's pressure to monopolize in the United States. And in one sense, even though I've said industrial capitalism is internationalist, wanting to control the whole world, it's also very nationalist in the sense that it's centered in the United States. And the United States is a sponsor of finance capitalism because Wall Street basically is in control of the financial city of London, the Paris Bourse, the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. It's Wall Street that has become the central planner for central financial planning centers throughout the whole Western world. And that is the kind of global economy that is being juxtaposed to the Belt and Road Initiative and the kind of economy that China is trying to create as an alternative. And these dynamics are imposed specifically by the United States as their sponsor through the International Monetary Fund, where the United States has veto power, by the World Bank, and by NATO. And ultimately, US government officials have told me they can get European politicians to do whatever they want simply by bribing them. They say the good thing about European politics is it's all privatized. Politicians are in it to make money. How are you going to make money if you're a politician? You take a bribe from the United States to support policies that the United States supports, not German voters or Dutch voters or other NATO voter countries. Essentially, the politicians are run by the United States. And just to make sure that they don't double cross the driver, the United States taps their phones. For instance, a year or two ago, it became there was an uproar in Germany that America's was tapping Angela Merkel's phone. Well, of course, it's tapping it. It wants to make sure that Angela Merkel doesn't do what the head of Honduras did and make us have to overthrow her, make her have a heart attack or something. That sounds conspiratorial, but it's how the world works. Hollywood gets it right. This is not in the economics textbooks. The economics textbook doesn't say you lock in a free market by always controlling the police and the CIA, and sometimes you have to work covertly. That is not in the economic system. It's called externality, meaning it's external to the market models, but it's not external to how the world works. When I was at Chase Manhattan, one of the people reporting to Chase of their sending letters every week was the Archduke von Habsburg, who would send reports on what's happening through everywhere. And I was actually in charge of receiving this intelligence and spreading it to the rest of the economics department. And every Friday afternoon, we were all getting pretty tired of the week, and I'd pull out his reports and I'd read it, and it was like the movie of the week. It was like a thriller about all of the covert espionage and dirty tricks that were being done all over the world. And I guarantee you that the bankers not only know what's happening, but reciprocally, almost all bankers are where intelligence operatives want to be placed. When I was at Chase, the office right across the hall from me, there was a man from naval intelligence there, whose job was to collect all of the bank intelligence that was of interest in naval intelligence. My best friend at Chase had come from military intelligence. Most of the higher officers were naval intelligence. So the banks and the intelligence agencies and the government are all intertwined to make sure that the world is going to follow a financialized system.